Welcome to the Unstoppables, the place where we turn those intentions into dollars. Today, my very special guest is Dr. Khaldoun Swei. Did I pronounce that right?
Sweis, but I've been called worse.
And I've already tried that once before, about 30 seconds, and I just did not get that. It's really not that difficult. Dr. Sweis and I had a great conversation about, what was it, 6 months ago, 7 months ago?
Yeah.
We can capture some of the essence of that philosophical discussion, and I can actually understand what you're speaking about. I think we're going to have a great show. You know, I just like that for a start. I'm going to give you, first I'm going to give you the easy one, all right? You're in Chicago, and you're warm. You're wearing short sleeves, you got long sleeves on there.
Oh, yeah.
As long as you don't go outside, you're okay.
Yeah, I'm okay. If I just
we've already established the fact that this background filter is not fake. This is not a green sheet. This is real sun coming in Southern California. Tell me, Khaldoun, about your background. Give me some 30,000 feet, come right down to 15 and 5. Just take off.
Wow. Well, Bill, my family's from Jordan in the Middle East, some of the most peaceful regions on earth, right? Actually, it's more peaceful than the south side of Chicago. But nevertheless, my family, I came to the state when I was about 3 years old, and they had put a sign on my desk that says Khaldoun could only ask 5 questions an hour. Apparently, I had tortured my family and then tortured my teachers with the questions that I've been digging behind the scenes that have just pricked my mind and invigorated my spirit. But by forcing me to limit those questions, had me to articulate them in a fashion that connects to people and connects and allows me to hone the questions in a more precise fashion. Nevertheless, as I grew, I began to find out that you could actually get a degree doing this kind of thing in philosophy. So you can actually get paid for this. And then I just jumped into it, and of course, fast forwarding everything else in life, but I got into philosophy, and it was just absolutely amazing opening that door and jumping right in. And God just seemed to lay the pathway for me wherever I went, where whoever I talked to, whatever music I listened to, whatever book I read, just themes seem to just jump out at me of that are hidden behind everything around us. And it seemed to be invigorating for me as I continued to pursue that as a career path. Of course, the spiritual path merges with that for me, but we can talk about that.
Turning thinkers into believers and believers into thinkers. That's part of your mission. Or is that your mission? Turning thinkers into believers and believers into thinkers.
One of the goals of my life, one of the paradigms that I have embraced, or that has embraced me, is the fact that there is evidence for our faith. Evidence for the position that actually Christ came to earth, walked the earth, did these actual miracles, and that it's not all just blind faith. Children believe in Santa Claus, the unicorn. I believe in a bunch of different types of fairy stories as a child. But just because you believe it doesn't make it true, no matter how much you believe it.
Wait a minute, don't disabuse me of the notion that there's not unicorns. Okay.
Oh man, it's hard to blow that to you, man.
Ruined my Christmas with that one. Go ahead.
Oh, my deepest condolences to you, man, brother. But the fact of the matter is, many adults see God as this cosmic Santa Claus type of figure that only exists because they truly and intensely believe it. My contention is, if God exists, God will exist whether you believe it or not. And if there is actual evidence for that, I think that will help you navigate through the deepest and darkest times of your life, knowing that what you believe is not just make-believe, not just some kind of esoteric wish fulfillment type of argument that Sigmund Freud talked about. It is a substantial evidence. There is substantial evidence for the faith that we hold. And I think that evidence can guide us through some of the most difficult periods of our lives. And taking that faith and grounding it in something that will help us move forward, using your own terminology, Bill, I think is essential.
Logically faithful sounds like an oxymoron, right? Logically, it's like jumbo shrimp. That's all I got. Logically faithful. So tell me what logic I think you're on the periphery with it, what we just talked about. But logically faithful, you want to bring me down to 10,000 feet on that.
Sure. Yeah, I intentionally use that, we call it oxymoron, because there is a a belief system among the academics as well as the average layperson that the world we live in and the world of faith is a faith of blindness, a faith that you just have to believe based on your feelings. This type of misconstruction of the biblical grounding of faith is paramount throughout culture. What I was trying to do is ground that to say, if you are actually a faithful person, then your faith should be logical, it should be coherent, it should match the evidence around you. It shouldn't be some kind of make-believe, hocus pocus type of mythology. It should be based on miracles, not magic. It should be based on reality, not wish fulfillment. It should be based on what is rather than what you want to be. And I understand that there's a time when what you want to be, and if you believe it strong enough, you can actually act on that and create the systems around you and change the world around you. But that comes by acting, not just belief alone.
How do you define success?
I did a talk a number of years ago to Phi Beta Kappa Honor Society here in Chicago, where they asked me to distinguish between what is true success. And what I did there is I talked about the difference between being faithful and being successful in a worldly sense. Being faithful is embracing what you know to be true, good and beautiful, and acting on that, regardless of the consequences, with everything you got. And whether you fail or whether you succeed, you gave it your best, and that's all that matters at that time. And you can learn from that and learn from your failures so you can become better at it. So that's how I would define a true success, is giving your best to what you do. I'll give you an example of what I mean. I took a class, a French class actually in college, and it was a great class. The problem is the professor only spoke in French, nothing else. So I failed that class miserably.
We have that in common because I did the same thing at Purdue.
Did you?
All alone. Yes. And then I transferred into German where I was a middling C student.
Oh, did you? Well,
Yeah,
well,
being vulnerable, man.
so we're in the same boat, man. Well, I jumped off that boat. I got thrown off that boat because I failed.
I had a hole in it.
And then I took the class again. And this time I learned from my previous mistakes. I hired a tutor, which was distracting because she was very, very attractive, and it was just very distracting. It was a problem anyway. But I hired a tutor, and I had to learn my French.
Was she French?
The
tutor.
I think she was, yes.
Trying to get a visual.
Right.
Go ahead.
And I took that class. I learned from my past mistakes, and again, I failed. But looking back, the first time I blamed myself because I didn't take into account all the other factors in my life that were causing me to fail. The second time I failed, I did take these into account, gave it my best, but still didn't make it. Nevertheless, I tried and I gave it my best. The second time I do not regret. I think that's something we can learn from in every endeavor of our lives. Give it your best, whether you come out the other side of the top of the mountain or not. You change at the end of it.
Okay, you just brought me down the road, and you can do this to me, and I just love sitting here listening to you. I could do that all day long. It's very rare for me to want to listen to someone else because I always want to talk. Kelsey's laughing over here on the side because she knows it's true. Give me a Christmas present give the viewers a Christmas present. How do you work through blame? How do we try to divest some of that feeling of blame where we blame ourselves for something? How do you work with that? You know, taking on blame. Yeah, I've got to blame myself. But that's a word that I try to, a concept that I try to move through and beyond is blame. So
I hear you, brother. There is a concept in psychology called the imposter syndrome. Are you familiar with it?
Yes, very much.
Yeah. So it's something I struggle with myself.
But I could say the emperor has no clothes sometimes.
Sometimes he actually doesn't, right? And sometimes it's me who thinks it's the case, right?
Yeah.
And I'm the one. So I come into my office I'm actually a philosophy professor. I have to actually pinch myself. Me? A philosophy professor? Come on! Seriously, because the imposter syndrome is a belief system or a paradigm that we have embraced that tells us that we're not good enough, we're not going to make it, we're not worthy of this, and one day we will be exposed by those who are better, wiser, faster, richer, and wiser, and more pretty than us. It is a mindset that's welded inside us or tattooed on our souls since we're children. And sometimes, I mean, looking back on my own life as a child, as an immigrant from Jordan, as somebody who struggled with the language, I was always marginalized, pushed to the side, told I couldn't make it, told I wasn't good enough. So when I embraced the path of philosophy, the path of teaching, the path of encouraging and inspiring others, on a deep level, I want to do that to help others. I do. But on a personal level, I want to do it to overcome my own insecurities. I want to show the world and myself that I can make it, that God did implant these gifts, talents, and abilities inside me. And I'm not to keep them to myself because that would be selfish. I'll share them with the world. But by doing that, I'm overcoming my own insecurities, my own failures. How do I overcome that? Well, it's like overcoming swimming. I could read about swimming. I could talk about swimming. I could watch movies about swimming. But baby, you got to get in that water. Once you get in that water and you start moving and even possibly almost drowning, can you really understand what swimming really means? And then you can really teach it to others. Mm-hmm. You have to face your fears straight on. And you may be overcome by them at first, and that's normal. But it's by being overcome by them that you can rise up stronger, better, and more powerful than you ever were before.
You know, this is a great time to plug my book, Always Forward, because you just paraphrased that for me. That was great. I love that piece on fear. Here's another part about fear. This is my deepest fear, and I want you to address this one for people. My biggest fear is the fear of regret. So I don't want to be, I play life forward, and I don't want to think of myself being on a park bench somewhere, let's just say, metaphorical park bench of life, where I'm sitting there at an age where I can't do those things that I can do now, where I'd have that regret. I left something behind. I don't want to have that regret. That's my biggest fear. How would you philosophize or work with people to say, you know, regret something that you don't want to have? I think there was a study done where 92% of the people in a hospice said they had regret for things that they didn't do, more so than the things they ever did. Mm-hmm.
When you talk about regret, Bill, are you referring to specifically in the business environment? Are you referring to in the spiritual? I'm not sure what you're...
I think there's four pillars to me. To me, there's four pillars.
Okay.
There's the intellectual pillar, which fuels and funds these ideas and concepts. There's the physical that's able to catch those ideas and concepts, to be able to actually go in motion, to be able to take care of that physical vessel. There's the spiritual overarching, which is the most important one to me, which is our guide system, our value system, our belief system. It's something greater than us. And there's also the emotional connection to people, which we have to have. It's a key. You said tattooed on your soul. That's just part of being human, is that emotional connection. So all those four pillars are in play as I think about regret. Is it not just in the sense of business in terms of dollars, but in terms of a life fulfilled, a life lived instead of an existence, an impoverished form of existence where maybe I made a lot of money, but my soul was hollow. Maybe I was able to do this, but I physically couldn't enjoy it because, so it's all those four pillars in concert.
They are. And Jesus himself said it the best. What profit a man if he gains the whole world and loses himself or loses his own soul? Yeah. And in James, in the scriptures, it says, you get not because you ask not. And I do not want that on my tombstone. He did not receive because he didn't ask. I asked God for the most crazy stuff. On my knees, I'm asking for the most amazing things. And the things that I can't possibly get myself, because I know with his hand, he's able to do all things. But at the same time, he's given me that ability to get up and ask and help and reach out and encourage and feed the poor and uplift the orphan and be kind to those around me. We ask God, why haven't you done these things? Why haven't you acted in the world? One of God's replies could be, I created you. It's one of the reasons we're here, to act and be the hands and feet of God to the world around us. And he's given us abilities to do that. One of the things that holds us back is the thing that you mentioned, which is regret. What if I do ABC? What if I fail? What if I fall on my face? Now, I know you guys are not blessed with wonderful snow and cold, freezing ice on the floor after a snowstorm.
That's one way to look at it. Yeah.
When I'm walking outside in front of the building, in front of all my students, and I trip and I fall, boom, on that ice. The first thing I do, instead of checking my foot if I had broken a bone, no, I look around to see who saw me fall.
Yes, and then you pick up your card and call your lawyer.
Right, yeah. That comes a little bit later, right? Well, the point is, we're so afraid of what people think of us, about our own survival, or our own mental, spiritual, psychological health. We have to overcome that. And that's not it's a process. It doesn't take, it's not overnight. Because what people think of us is important, but it's not as important as what we think about ourselves and what God thinks about us.
Yes.
Once I have embraced that, then I can overcome that. And I'm not buying into the notion that it doesn't matter what people think of you. That's absurd. Of course they matter. But what matters is what you think about yourself, what God thinks about you, and how that helps you change the world around you. That is something that we cannot ignore.
Okay, you only get one of these. You only get one. You can't give me three. You can give me three later, but you only give me one. What is your defining moment? I should say what was.
What was?
It was.
Defining moment, Bill. Wow.
Love that one.
Go for the jugular there, right?
You were so animated, man. Let me jump back. You jump back to that instinct. You were so animated. You got me going. I was like, okay, it's time for me to take back the show. What was your defining moment?
One big one. After my son died, it was a few weeks later that it hit me that he's gone. It took a while. I was pouring coffee in the kitchen, and it hit me that I'm never going to hold my son again, at least not in this life. And the overwhelming sense of despair filled me. I just collapsed on the kitchen floor like a fetal position and wept. I don't know how long it was. I think time just disappeared from me. After I got up from that and began to reflect upon God and upon the afterlife and upon the fact that I actually do have evidence, psychological, logical, philosophical evidence for the soul not ending at death, it gave me a hope like I'd never had before, to get up and say, there are other people who lost their sons too. There are other people who suffered too. Use this pain, use this sorrow that you went through to inspire and help them. Don't keep it to yourself. And I got up and I started my ministry. I started my work of Logically Faithful and started moving forward with that. That was one defining moment for me.
Wow. That's all I got on that one. Wow. Let me ask you a question that some people may ask. Do you believe in past lives? You talk about the soul moving through. What does that look like to the layman?
Well, I don't embrace the notion of reincarnation, but I do embrace the notion that there is a spirit within you. There is more to Bill Woodrich than what I'm looking at here. He has dreams, he has nightmares, he has hopes, he has visions. He has things he doesn't want to talk about. There's things he does.
He's got a closet full of them.
Oh yeah, man. Well, we got to keep open that one up. But there's more to you than just your body. And the absurdity of the notion of the world that there's just my body. That's all I am. When my body's gone.
You kill me. You get me on. There's no more unicorn, and there's more to me than my body. Come on, you just have completely crushed my Christmas spirit. Humbug, baby. But,
oh, Bill, come on.
So could I be familiar with someone from this past life, this other spirit, this whatever? I don't, not reincarnation, but tell me about the spirit as it moves on. Soul. Am I using spirit, soul interchangeably, incorrectly? Probably. No?
Well, it depends on, different people use them in different paradigms and different worldviews. The word soul is basically the word psyche in Greek, which is where we get the word psychology, the study of the soul. Modern psychology has completely shifted away from that, where it's more of a study of behaviors rather than the study of the inner man or the inner being within us. So there is a soul. It's the composition, the complete amalgam of everything you are, physical, non-physically, your mind, your spirit, your mentality, your memories, your feelings, your experiences. All these together make up who you are. That moves throughout life in your body. And at death, there's a divorce between the body and the soul, where one is separated. And then finally, they are reunited in what we call in theology the resurrection at the end. But in that period of time, there's a split. People often ask, well, what evidence is there for the soul? Because actually scientists in the past have actually studied the body, where they actually would weigh the thing after people die in a few seconds before and see, is there a difference? And there's one of my favorite Marvel characters is the Atom, or the Amman, the DC version. But what they do is they shrink into a point. There he is. All right. I got to show you. Okay. I'll show you in a bit what it's about now, about the Bruce Wayne character. Well, one of the things he does is shift himself and change his molecular structure, where he's able to go into the subatomic world and travel into the brain of the other average person. And one of the characters is searching for the soul inside the body. Of course, he doesn't find it and assumes it's not there. The problem is this is called a category mistake that these doctors were making and these characters are making, because the soul is not physical. You won't find it because you're looking for it in a physical way. Right. In the same way, justice is not physical. In the same way, logic is not physical. In the same way that morality is not physical. But life doesn't work without them. They're very much real. They're just not physical. Once we embrace that and walk away from the scientific mythology that only science has the truth, can we understand that there's more to science, more to life than just science, more to life than just a physical. And that more to life than that is that thing that gives us purpose, that helps us to continue moving forward. It's not just this body. It's the thing that animates the body. And that would be what we call the spirit or the soul.
So it goes on in perpetuity. It just keeps going.
I would say you don't have a soul, Bill. I say you are a soul. You have a body. And you're also, a body in one sense or another, and they intermingle in the same way my coffee. When I pour the milk and the coffee together, they kind of become homogeneous together.
No, I love it. I really do. I could just keep listening to you. Bring me back to what it is you're doing now in Logically Faithful and how we can find you. How do we get in touch with you too? Because I think you have some fascinating an outlook that you have at philosophy, and I think the stuff you could teach is extremely valuable.
So the Logically Faithful is, of course, the website of the same name, or Facebook /Logically Faithful. I have a bunch of videos there and a lot of blogs and things of that nature where we argue and present evidence for the faith that the Christians have propagated for the last 2,000 years. And this evidence, I think, will help people through the periods of life that are considered the darkest. Consider like a diamond, Bill. A diamond is formed only with intense pressure. The darkest of substances on earth is a coal. Take that coal with a bunch of other rocks around it and push that in with intense pressure, and you'll form the hardest substance on earth, and one of the most beautiful, the diamond. I think our spirit is...
You sell them for Every Kiss Begins with K. You sell them for jewelers right now? Because a lot of diamonds are going to be purchased around this time of year, right?
Maybe you can send them my way. that would be great, yeah.
We're under intense pressure, we're a diamond, so keep going.
Well, we're all a diamond in the making.
I want to know why I should look you up and watch your videos. Tell me why.
Because you need evidence for your faith. You need evidence to get you through the deepest and most difficult periods of your life. You can't just believe this wish-fulfilling, positive thinking nonsense. That only gets you through a little period. But when it really gets to a point of suicide, when the volcanic eruptions of life surround you, whether it's a divorce, whether it's death, whether it's loss of a job or a diagnosis, you need something to get you through the darkness. And it has to be more than just yourself. Pulling up yourself by your own bootstraps only goes so far. And the evidence God has provided for us through the scriptures, through philosophy, through archaeology, through science, I think will help us navigate and get through that and become better people than we ever were before. And I think Logically Faithful will do that for you.
So it's almost as if we're blocking the light in some ways, because we're having all this doubt or this, and you're going to give us the light. Actually, let us look to the light. Let us see. We have to find our own light, but let us look to it without that shroud, without those clouds.
I'm just one beggar pointing everyone else to the food that I found.
That's pretty good.
That food is life-changing.
I'm gonna have to go back and replay this and watch all these things, all the metaphors you've taught me, because I can use them again and never give you credit for it. I can do that.
Steal away, brother.
What are your plans for Christmas and the holidays? What are you doing?
You know, my wife has a schedule. She's my commander-in-chief. Well, not commander-in-chief, but what was that called? The person who runs the White House?
You have a good marriage, don't you? You have a successful marriage, don't you? You've already relinquished the illusion of control.
Yeah, illusion of control. Exactly. Yeah. Right. Illusion of control. We'll give that up, right? Mama's not happy, nobody's happy. Is that how it works?
Yeah, yes, smart man. So what are you gonna do?
Man, family. We have so much family here in Chicago. They just surround us and we populate like rabbits, us Jordanians. So we'll be around each other. We'll be just celebrating, wondering the birth of Christ and the wonder of the family around us and enjoying that together. We won't have the wonderful weather you have, but we'll have that inside. I think that's what matters.
Oh, okay. This is your last point. Go ahead and throw. What do you want for a takeaway? What do you want our viewers to, bam, give me an impression. Give me that tattoo on the soul, man. Give it to me.
Hurt people end up hurting other people.
Wow.
Yeah.
Depression is anger turned inward. If you don't take those difficult periods of your life and you don't engage them and deal with them and face them head on, they will turn back upon you and you'll end up hurting the people you love the most, the people around you.
Wow.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Wow.
You need to engage that. You need to deal with it. Don't stop pushing it about. Stop pushing it under the rug and pulling it away. Deal with it. And I think when you can change the world around you and the world inside you.
Here, I'm going to dribble out my limited psychology, class. This is my limited knowledge of psychology. Isn't that displacement almost where you're like, you had a bad day at work, go home, kick the dog, something like that? That's
Maybe that dog needs kicking.
This dog is good. You know, you are as animated as me, and I am Batman.
I gotta show you this. Okay, I don't see it. I gotta bring it down. You gotta see this. All right, there it is. There it is.
How's it going, Hollywood partner and Mr. Forrest out there? Oh, hey, look at that. That's cool.
That's from Batman versus Superman.
You know what? I'm going to tell you something about, I read this about Jung. When he split from Freud, he went to his sandbox and played around, went back to his childlike wonder as a kid. And it really just, and that's when his best archetypes and all the things he started to just come up with happened. And sometimes we've got to keep that wonder of being a kid, the play stuff, you know, the whole, just play, man, because we take this freaking life too serious. And we just like, we get down in that inward, like you said, depression, anger turned inward, that inverted version. You gotta, man, freaking have fun. You know, this stuff is got to be fun at some point. And you're having, I can tell you're having fun.
You need to enjoy life. You really do. I mean, I schedule my time to work. I also schedule my time to play, go see a movie, go see a play, go swimming. That's what I did this morning. If you don't schedule that.
You can't speak French, but you can swim?
No parlez vous français, but I'm not drowning, and that helps.
I love you. That was, I got to come to Chicago later when it's nice and actually meet with you. You were great.
We got to call a Cubs game too, man.
I love it. Hey, listen, have a great holiday season. Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. It's an honor.